Ho! Welcome back, gamers and gentlemen, to another episode of GamerKulture. My name is Kuma, and today it's a little special because it's a two-man show, one-on-one. I have with me today Falco of Zombie Corps. How you
What's
doing,
up?
man?
How are you? How are things?
I'm good. You know, as good as it can be, knowing that my beautiful shit show of a state, Arizona, is lifting its mask ban.
Oh,
So
that's
that's great.
wonderful.
Yeah. My particular place of work is not. It is considered part of our uniform for the foreseeable future. But we are no longer going to be enforcing it, I guess, in the store because both my city and my state are lifting the mask requirement. So that's going to be great. You know, just exposed to that all day. I know you're still out in California. Things still pretty much the same on lockdown.
Actually, as of yesterday, Orange County went to orange. So it's actually getting better around here.
Okay. I know Disneyland's getting ready to open back up.
Same thing with Universal, apparently. Universal and Disney are about to open, but because things went back to orange, what was the stuff? It says, like, certain places like bowling alleys can reopen at like 25% capacity. Indoor restaurants can open 50%, like stuff like that. So things seem to be getting better here. Although, with things opening up and not everybody still being vaccinated, it could go right back. So
I get you.
But it's hopeful. Hopeful,
yeah.
So
Fingers crossed things get a little better for you guys. But that is not today's topic of discussion. Today's topic of discussion is Final Fantasy related. So Final Fantasy 14 has its newest expansion coming out soon. If it's a shame we couldn't have Kibbles here because I know he's a big player of Final Fantasy 14. I myself have only dabbled.
Same. I've only dabbled a little bit. My character, I don't even think is past level 10 or so.
I don't have a PC character. I have one on the PlayStation 4. He got to actually the free level cap, which I believe is 50.
Yeah, I think that nowadays it's you go up to the first expansion or something.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, Final Fantasy 14, really the only reason I don't play is because I've got a problem with MMOs. But not that I don't like them, I like them too much.
To be fair, I can't really get into many MMOs. I never got into WoW. I never got into, like, the only one I ever really got into was the Old Republic, and even then I stopped after about a month.
I hear you. Yeah, I hear it's some of the best writing in Final Fantasy, like, lately, is going into the MMO, which is a shame because it ties into the topic for today. Number 2, getting into it, is where has Final Fantasy gone wrong? And don't get me wrong, I love Final Fantasy. I know Falco loves Final Fantasy. A lot of us do, and I'm sure a lot of you watching do. In my opinion, a lot of Final Fantasy's kind of gone downhill very slowly over the past maybe 10 years or so. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about today, me and you, just kind of where we think it has gone wrong, or whether you disagree with me, whether you think it's still going strong, it's just different. Like, do you feel they've made any major missteps?
Yes,
or is that
I do. I also think that in more recent times with the new stuff with Final Fantasy 14, they've kind of gone back up, but it's only to a point. I still feel that at certain points there were mistakes were made, and I don't know if it was just I don't think it was just one event. I think it was a gradual event of several things in a row. So
I get you. No, I agree. I think it was a lot of, like, there were sequential mistakes that they kept making. So personally for me, I've played Final Fantasy 7. I've dabbled in Final Fantasy 9, played Final Fantasy 4, played 10, 12, and I, again, messed with 14 a bit, and I played about halfway through 15 before I had to put it down, because I hated it. But I feel like with Final Fantasies, like, with the older ones, up into about 10, even 12, each game, I always knew what I was getting into. there was always they didn't try to go too crazy with anything. Combat was always very straightforward. You had the older like active time battle system like you had with 17, or not 17, with 7,
Mm-hmm.
with 9, even 4. And then with 10 you had more of the strategic, slower turn-based system. And I loved those games. 10 and 7 are still some of my favorite games. I think the characters, there were a lot of characters, but you cared for most of them. Obviously characters like Yuffie and Vincent were optional, but even when you got them, their stories were enough that you usually cared enough about them. Maybe not even Yuffie as much, but definitely Vince. You could kind of take or leave Kate Sith, in my opinion. And then with 10, it was the same thing. Each character, they gave enough screen time to each character, and enough motivation and enough differences in their characters as well, that I felt like I really enjoyed each character. They felt like they had a lot of life breathed into them.
Yeah, no, I think 10 did very well. I think 10 did exceptionally well at that. Even when like my least favorite character eventually got even better as the story went on, but at first, I didn't give a damn about Kamari.
That's that's fair.
But then as soon as you get up the mountain and you get to these douchebags, you're like, you know what?
Well, it's like he didn't have like, I don't think he had a full sentence until you got to the mountain.
There was barely anything, and the first time you run into those two guys is like down in Luca, and they're like messing with him. But it's once you get up the mountain, and you're like, all right, you know what?
Because Kumari was definitely more like the silent protector, which was weird because you already kind of had Orin in that role as like the old mentor.
I think it was because it was supposed to be like split between like the silent protector of Yuna and then Orin's the silent protector of Titus.
That's fair.
Titus or Titus or whatever way you want to
Canonically,
say it.
It's Titus, and I hate it.
I don't really care either way. I just said it for both because I know certain people were going to be like, "Oh, it's this way." It's like, but
No, yeah. No, I agree. Like Kamari was definitely probably like the hardest one to get to like, but even by the end of the game, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. He just didn't trust me. And that's fair. I'm this character that just rolls in out of nowhere. His whole life has been about guarding this little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And now this guy's rolling in. He's like, I don't trust her like this guy until you help him fight those two Ronso bullies. And then he's like, okay, you're all right.
Yeah.
But the stories as well, 7, 4, 9, 10, each of them were different enough, but also interesting enough and well written enough. They had villains that you genuinely could like, or you could see, their progression into villainy. I still think that Seymour from Final Fantasy X is more of a tragic villain than he is anything else, because the guy just had kind of a shit hand, like from his mom gives her life up to protect him in this broken cyclical system of sacrifice. And he literally summons her soul and it as a guardian. And it's this monstrous being of two like duality, bound, full of rage. And his whole idea of like, yeah, I agree. This land is plunged into sadness and I should end the cycle by destroying all of it. And you're like, half a moment, sir. I disagree. But then we get into 12, and 12 is where I feel that the franchise really started to misstep. I liked 12. I've put probably over 100 hours into 12. I had the guidebook, so I did all the hunts. I collected all the shit. I had everything. I think the only things I never did was I never got the final summon, and I never beat the final hunt. Both of which because they were freaking ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked the gameplay of 10, or 12. The gambit system was interesting. It took a little while to get used to. Go ahead.
12 is definitely a point I think that was definitely
when
when
they started to stumble.
I think it was when I started really not to care anymore. To be fair though, I kind of stopped caring when I got to 11, and I couldn't even play that. But then again, that was the first their first
That's the first MMO.
the first MMO going into it, and it was on the at the time I didn't have functional or a good PC to run it. I had to run it
Same.
off of a PlayStation 2, which I don't even think when it first came out I didn't have a network adapter.
Yeah.
And when I
Same.
eventually did, I didn't care.
It kind of passed.
It kind of passed, and and from when I was reading about it, it's like, I don't know. I'm glad that they did better with 14, but
Well, 14 it took them 2 tries as well.
yes, yes, that is also a good point.
But like talking about the Gambit system, I didn't even hate the Gambit system. I just think because it takes a while for you to unlock all the slots and really fine tune how you want to kind of program your character. It still meant you had to take manual control, which is fine. I thought that was fine. But what really killed me was the characters. I hate the characters of Final Fantasy XII. I think Vaughn and Pinello are absolute useless to the story. They're useless.
I completely understand that. I didn't really. I can't say that I can't say that I outwardly really hated any of them. I just didn't care.
That was the thing, right? Looking back, I didn't hate Vaughn and Pinello. I didn't like Pinello. I always thought Pinello was useless. So I've always disliked her. But at the time, I was like, oh, Vaughn's kind of like I'm not going to call him Titus, a Titus analog. He's the plucky hero. He doesn't really understand a lot of what's going on. He's kind of getting swept up in somebody else's adventure. But he's still here, and he's the hero, guys. He's totally the hero. The problem is Final Fantasy XII is almost like a bland reflection of Final Fantasy X. It's kind of like, Mom, I want Final Fantasy X. We have Final Fantasy X at home. Final Fantasy XII.
I think because 10 did so well, they were trying to replicate some of it into the next one, and it just didn't. I mean, obviously, you get enough people. It's the best way.
I could see that.
What's the best way to put it? I don't know. I feel like it just doesn't have the same heart.
It's like a really bland reflection. I agree. It doesn't have the same heart. That's a really, really good way to put it. You've got, Titus is like the Vaughn. You've got Pinello is almost like your Riku. You have Ash who's like your Yuna. Bosch who's kind of like your Auron. You have these characters who can step into these roles. The problem is the only characters in your party that are genuinely interesting whenever they're on screen are Fran and Balthier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's funny because the whole game, Balthier makes the joke that he's the leading man. I wish he was. I wish Balthier was the main character, because Van and Pinello, number one, are incredibly boring. They are very flat personalities. There's really not much to them beyond we're street orphan kids who just want to be sky pirates. That's their motivation. And it's been years since I played that game. I might have missed some details, but unless I'm really forgetting a lot, there's really not much to them at all.
I'd like to tell you if you're right or wrong, but I'm in the same boat. It's been so long that, and like I said, I didn't care nearly enough that I just don't remember that. I just don't remember enough.
But that's the thing, right? Like they didn't even make enough of an impression for me to remember if I'm getting their personalities right or wrong.
Right. Exactly.
And you've got Ash and Bosch who are okay. Ash is your princess in hiding, who's like the leader of this resistance. You've got Bosch, who's her right-hand man, general. Maybe they have like subtle romantic feelings for each other, maybe not. But after it's Final Fantasy X's problem of it's not the main character's journey. It wasn't Titus's journey. It was Yuna's journey, but he still felt like the protagonist.
Right, they did a good job of that because of how he was bound and whatnot to the world because of the fact The big bad ended up being in a jet and everything like that. But in 12, it just doesn't. It doesn't have the same feeling. It's just not. To me, it's so hard to describe just how much I just don't care about 12. And
that's a good way to put it. 12 didn't do a good job of making you care about the characters.
And one of my buddies got 12. I remember when it came out, and he let me borrow it to like just kind of go through it because he was way into it, and I just gave it back eventually after I had gotten pretty much all the way through it, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I was done. I was done near the end. And I just got to give it back.
I totally get it. And it's a shame because there was a lot of game design choices that I really liked. Again, like I did like the combat. I like the gambit system. I like being able to basically program your character's actions. I did like the license system. I think it was a little clunky, and I know in the remake they've kind of smoothed it out a little bit. But I like being able to kind of craft my character. Like Ash was a paladin, Bosch was my speedy attacker with a katana. Vaughn was like my lancer / off heals. Fran was my black mage. You know, all that shit.
Right. Right.
And that was fun. I did like that. I liked the hunt system. It gave you a lot to do on the side. I thought the way that they integrated the summons into the lore was really interesting. You did kind of have to go out of your way to understand what was going on, but kind of like with 10, they did a really good job of integrating a mechanic that's really popular in Final Fantasy, all the summons, and they integrated them into the story, into the lore, into the backstory. It did really well. But just the characters were so boring. They were so flat. You didn't care about anybody. Balthier was fun when he was on screen. Teenage Sean really, really liked Fran for many reasons. But everyone else was just flat. You know, even the world was great. I like the world. I like skyships. I like all the kingdoms and the political strife that was going on. It was really interesting. But it's like they forgot how to write good characters. They forgot how to give good motivations to characters. I think that was the issue with 12.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I'd have to agree completely. So, it just felt so bland. It's so hard to get into it when I just don't care.
Yeah.
And
you can't love something when you don't care about the characters you're playing.
Right.
It's like I don't even know what your motivate. Why are you even here? Fran, like not Fran, Pinello and Vaughn should have gone home. Like leave it to the adults, let them take care of it.
And it didn't help that as soon as we got past 12, the series, which was now going down, immediately crash dived into 13.
Oh, crash dive is a great way to describe it.
And then proceeded to skid across the floor twice, bounced twice, and then smacked into the side of a car when 14 originally got released. And then came to a dead thump at 15, somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. It took like the car owner of 14 to come back to it and go, "Hey, you okay?"
Yeah, just a trail of bodies and fire behind it. Just squealing children. There's death everywhere. A great way to transition into 13. 13. I mean, we've shit talked 13 before.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much more we can do on it, but I still wanted to point out.
I mean,
because
I can give you 13's problems right here. They tried to recreate a character of Cloud with lightning.
Mm-hmm.
They, this like, oh, I've got a chip on my shoulder and I feel very, apathetic to the world, but excuse me, it's really just because I've got so much on my mind and so much weighing on me and this complex backstory. Honey, no one gave a shit. No one cared about you, Lightning. I realize it's not your fault, but your writers sucked.
She's still really popular in Japan. She's still really popular in Japan for some reason.
She is, which shocks. Maybe there's something I'm not understanding, but she just felt so boring. And I know that they made other 13 games. I always forget that there's a 13.2 and a 13.3.
That's why I was saying. That's why I said when it hit the ground, it bounced twice because it it went right back into the ground.
Which and okay, spoiler alert for people who have never played those games. Maybe skip ahead a couple minutes here. The ending of Final Fantasy 13.3. Lightning basically passes through dimensions and ends up like on a train in the middle of like provincial Japan, like just riding on this train, just talking about life. So you're like, wait a second. Now she's like this, like just person sitting on a train, reminiscing about the pass through games in the middle of modern Japan. What the? What? Final Fantasy's done some weird shit, but we're just gonna plop her in the middle of modern era and then leave her there. That's the end of the game. So let's also talk about the other really big downside about Final Fantasy 13 is the linearity. Now, I know that Final Fantasy 10 you could also argue is very linear. It's really like one giant hallway you have to walk through, but at least you can kind of walk back and forth. You can explore those sections of the hallway. Final Fantasy 13 was so just keep going straight. Keep going straight. Just, are you at the end? Keep going straight. Are you in the next game? Keep going straight. It was a giant tunnel.
Yeah.
There was so little exploration.
Oh, yeah.
There was, for this big world that they created, there was not a lot of world exploration. You know, I don't think we've gotten world, like yes, with 15, and I'm not counting 14 because it's an MMO, so you kind of have to have exploration. But not since, I would argue, 7 have we had like that much really good like open world exploration. It took until 15 to get a mainline game that genuinely let you open up the. Well, no, I'm skipping 12. 12 was really good too, but that's because 12 felt like an MMO and played like an MMO.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm guessing because they came off of 11. But 13 and 15, like 13 was just this hard stop into the tunnel, and it was noticeable while you were playing. It wasn't even like looking back. Oh, the game was kind of straightforward, wasn't it? Just kind of walking back. Yeah. No, we just went from one side to the other. That was the whole game. You noticed it while you were playing it.
Oh yeah.
And if you notice a game is linear, that's a mistake.
Yeah, no, and that's how it felt, and that's the way it is. Again, with 10 being, I know people argue, yeah, like you said, that it can be really linear, but it felt like, yeah, you can move around, you can look around, you can do that, especially when you get to near the end and you have the airship and you can go look everywhere and find more places. But yeah, 13 just felt it's just one long tunnel between. It feels like even when you stop 13 and go to 13.2, the tunnel just continues. It just doesn't stop until it's over. And
it sucks.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. It just sucks. And I know that, like I said, I know that Japan tends to really like her. I don't get it, but that's just me. Maybe missing something on that.
Yeah.
But I don't.
No, 100%. So, touching really quick into 14. 14 was probably one of the most interesting moves they've made. So they obviously had Final Fantasy 11, which was their first foray into making like a really good mainline MMO. And it was really popular. People loved it. I was in the same boat as you. I didn't have a network adapter. No way in hell would my parents have paid like a subscription fee for a game like that. Not at the time that it came out when I was in high school, like early high school. So with they kind of cut their teeth on that. Then they come to 14 and it stumbled hard. You know, they had 12 and 13 and all of the follow-ups to 13, and then they decided to dip their toe back into that MMO pool, and it stuttered. They didn't get the player base that they wanted. The content wasn't there, especially endgame content. The design of the game was very clunky. I still argue that the current kind of UI or the early game content, the kind of initial learning curves, a little steep. But that's just because there's a lot that you can do with the game. So I get why. But I really respect what they did. Instead of just pulling the plug on the game, they're like, okay, new lore. You all failed. You all failed. You all fucked up. World got destroyed. 1,000 years of darkness or whatever it is. This is the Realm Reborn, and that I believe that's the tagline of the base game, Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn.
Yeah.
And it was this massive overhaul of Final Fantasy XIV. They addressed all the concerns. They worked a lot harder at making sure the content was there, and the game is thriving. Like we said at the top of the show, it's some of the best writing is in Final Fantasy XIV now.
Yeah, no, it really did recover very well, considering how hard it hit the pavement. But and I'm glad it did.
Absolutely. I don't want it to fail.
Well, right, no, of course, but I mean, like, I'm glad it recovered well. I'm glad it's doing very well now, and it's not just not just another failed online kind of,
Yeah. One of those games where it's like, look, we get it. You're hanging on just because you want to hang on. Like, I'm gonna say it and piss some people off. I'm sure Terra or Star Wars: The Old Republic, and I say that as someone that played a bit of Old Republic last year. The game's all right, but it's hanging on. It's not thriving.
Like the Old Republic, like it got a lot of like extra content. It got a lot of extra, downloadable and expansion packs. But I mean, it's all over now. Like it did all those. Now it's just kind of sitting there. It's just kind of in its in its limelight, because it's not like Disney's letting them continue put more stuff on it at this point. So it's kind of there.
Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO. Yeah, they're coming out with content still. Oh yeah, they're still coming out with expansions.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say, because
they just came out with one last year.
I remember the bigger ones coming out, and they were really cool. I remember when like they brought back, Revan and all that, and they were doing the whole thing. But I feel like all the big ones came and went, and now it's just kind of.
Well, you had Rise of the Hutt Cartel, and then you had Shadow of Revan, which were two kind of the big base game expansions, and then after that you had
did you have the two?
Knights of the Fallen Empire,
right,
and then Eternal Throne. I might have those backwards, and now you have Onslaught. And when that time hit happened, because that expansion, like, you play the start of it, and then there's like a several year time gap. I think it's 5 years. That your character's in stasis, but that game, that kind of really shook up the game, because you got new companions. You had this alliance you kind of put together where you basically created like a third faction in the galaxy, which was really interesting. But no, they're still doing good. But 14 then bled itself into 15, and I don't like 15. I always hate just saying that something is objectively bad, and I'm not going to say 15's objectively bad, but I objectively hate it. I think the characters are extremely boring. I have played that game restarted it several times, and my girlfriend loves it. She actually has my signed by the voice actors copy in her room right now. She plays that game, or she played that game a lot. She loves it. I could tell you that the main character's name is Noctis. One of his buddies' name is Ignis, and that's about it. I couldn't tell you their personalities, other than Noctis was very like, he's basically Sasuke from Naruto. It's Bromance the Roadshow is what this game is. It's boring. It's just boring. I didn't find myself liking any of the characters. I hate the magic system. The magic system in 15 is, in my opinion, god-awful. The fact that you have to basically collect elements from the environment, really from campsites, and then you mix them into potions that you can throw to cast your big AoE spells that damage your allies if they're in them. Not as much as they damage your enemies, but still they damage them. The leveling system, I liked the XP system. That I did like. I liked the idea of if you camp, then you get the basic amount of experience that you earned, plus you get a buff because you're eating food. If you go to a hotel, then based on the quality of the hotel, you don't get a buff when you come out of it, but you can get a multiplier. You can earn a multiplier stacked onto your XP for sleeping at better and better places. That I thought was interesting. Didn't like the car, didn't like the characters, didn't like the combat. I felt my characters were dying all the time. I felt the story was outpacing the leveling. That the game was sort of ushering me to these newer places. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's time to leave this place. I've done a couple side quests, time to move on. And then you move on, and I just get decimated by enemies where I'm like, I'm avoiding the ones that I know are obviously like, okay, don't fuck with these guys, they'll screw you up. But like the random encounters with like the enemy soldiers that would swoop in and drop out of the pods, I'm like, okay, these aren't supposed to be that hard. I'm sure of it. And I was getting decimated every time. And I was like, okay, maybe it's my fault. Let me go back and grind. But after a while, I'm like, I'm not having fun. I couldn't tell you what the story was. Even while I was playing it, I'm like, we're chasing down his fiance, and like the enemy kingdom is bad because they're the enemy kingdom because they're dicks. Where am I? I'm in some big city, and all my buddies are trying to fix me up with this dude's sister, even though I'm literally chasing down my fiance right now. I was I being too harsh? Like, what did you think about 15? Because I could go on.
I didn't think it was nearly that bad, but I didn't really think it was exceptionally great either. I'm kind of in the middle on it. I did like some of the characters. I did like some of how it played. I can't say it was exceptionally great in a category, at least not in my opinion. I think the party members, Noctis, Ignis, Prompto, and Gladiators? I can't remember.
Oh god, it's a flower.
I'm sure.
Gladiolus.
That's right. He was the big dude. Do remember that. I think the party was pretty alright. I didn't have too much of a problem with it. I thought the characters were okay. I thought the voice acting was great.
Voice acting was okay from what I remember. A little flat sometimes.
At points, I thought Noctis was actually pretty well voice acted, but I think he's a fairly good voice actor in general. The story felt really I was not really into the story.
It felt very generic Final Fantasy, like evil kingdom attacks good kingdom because reasons.
Yeah, it kind of felt like that. And yeah, the whole like trying to set up while you're literally chasing your fiance kind of thing. It's like, you know, I also don't I just don't get the whole, at least in my opinion. It's the feeling of like your buddies and you in a car driving in a Final Fantasy. It's like we're going to Vegas. You know what's going on?
Doesn't the car eventually fly?
Something like that. Yeah, I don't remember. It's been a little while.
Freaking ridiculous.
Like Iggy really liked it. My buddy Iggy really liked it. He liked it. He went through a whole bunch of it. In fact, his like Discord profile I think is Ignis. But it's like, you know, the guy that, you know, it's that meme where the guy's like putting the spices on stuff, you know, with his like hands all. It's Ignis doing that.
Oh my god.
I don't hate it. I just don't think it was nearly as exceptional as I would want it. Yeah, as I would want it to be, or you know, anything like that. I just think it was. I think it was all right. That's my opinion on it. I think it was all right.
And you know what? It sucks too, because like I said, it's not like I want to hate any of these games. It's just really disappointing. You know, I remember going to GameStop Expo years ago as press for the network. That's where I met the voice actors. That's where I got them to do a signed copy of that alt cover for the game. I was really excited for it. You know, I hadn't played a Final Fantasy game. I'd watched my buddy play 13, and I'd watched a lot of videos of it. That's kind of where I've gotten my opinions from it. I've never really put my own hands on it. But the last time I'd really played a Final Fantasy game was 12, which was years prior. So I was really excited. And then when we finally got 15, I just remember being so let down. I was so disappointed. And what I really want going forward from Square Enix, going into Final Fantasy 16, which we've seen a little bit of some cutscenes, maybe one or two quick bits of combat. What I want from them is I want characters that feel unique and fleshed out. You know, I don't want a bunch of muted, gloomy, glumgus personalities. You know, give me characters with some life, with some vigor. I realize not everyone is going to be, you know, bright and sunny Mr. Chum Chum, which is fine. You need some downer to balance your upper when it comes to your character crew. But don't, you know, that was my thing that killed me with 15, was everyone just felt glum and gloomy. And I get it. They were in a rough situation, but they just didn't feel different enough from each other for me to be able to differentiate. That's why it's so hard for me to remember their names, is because their personalities just blend so much. So 15, give me a good cast of characters, people that I can remember. Give me a combat system that is intuitive. If you want to make it more actiony, which is kind of what it looks like they're doing.
Yeah, it seems like they're starting to go into a little more actiony type of combat,
which is fine, which is okay. I still think 10's one of the best systems they ever made.
Yeah,
because I like the time to think. But I'm totally down with some hack and slash action powers. That's okay. I'm okay with that. But do some other things that also make it unique. Get rid of the magic system that you had in 15. Throw it out. Fire the guy that came up with it. Bring in some more traditional magic. Like, if I'll take the draw system. I'll take the draw system from 8. I hated the draw system in 8. I'll take that over what they had in 15.
I didn't even mind the draw system in 8. But then again, I really liked it. That was me.
See, I always thought the draw system, like, it was like wasting a turn. It's like, I have to draw this power from this guy. It's like, no, give me the fucking spell.
No, I understand. I understand what you mean.
But and give me a story that I care about too. You know, so far, you know, 15's the first time I've genuinely disliked a story. Even 13, an okay story. If a little weird once they got into like the time travel-y shit. But with 15, just open it up a little bit. You know, breathe some more life into the world. Give us some varied places to explore. You know, 7 did that really well. 10 did that really well. 12 did that really well. And number one thing I really hope we get is exploration. You know, open the world up. 12 was huge. It was expansive. 7, once you got out of Midgard, you could literally explore the planet, which was something that a lot of older Final Fantasy games have done. You could explore the world, go where you wanted. For the most part, there were some limitations, but you know, let us explore this world that you have created for us to play in. Let it be our playground. Let us play with the shiny toys that you're giving us. You know, let me experience it the way I want to, and don't say, all right, guys, this is the place you're going. Yeah, you can get out of your car now and then, but you're mostly sticking to the roads if you're smart.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
No, you're not. And I, I really hope with whatever they're doing for 16 that they really get more in focus on stuff, because again, it just feels like it's been kind of bouncing along barely, for a while now. And like I said, yeah, the whole redone Final Fantasy 14 was good, and I'm glad it was. But their next new main title's gotta be like a straight hit out of the park. Otherwise, I don't know if I'm gonna care too much anymore. I feel like I've always tried to care about the next Final Fantasy because it's Final Fantasy, and I've been invested since. Surprisingly, I didn't get to play 7 when I was a kid, so I've been invested since 8, which then I went back and I played the other ones after 8. Some of the ones before that, obviously. 8 is when I first got into it, and since then it's been a couple of really good things. Some of the older ones. The 7 remake was good for what it is.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention the 7 remake.
Yeah,
I love the 7
I love
remake.
the 7 remake. I wish it didn't get cut up, so it was a thing. Yeah. But I see what they're doing with it, so I like it. I enjoy it very much. But yeah, after 10, really, we didn't mention it either. But I enjoyed 10 too. Mm-hmm. I didn't really like its whole dress sphere system, but other than that, I did really enjoy it.
Not gonna lie, and I forgot to mention 10.2 as well. I liked 10.2. I actually liked the system. I liked the dress sphere system to a point.
Right. I liked it to a point, but for the most part, I didn't like it as much as 10's system. But still, I liked the game, and I liked the story, and I liked what they were doing with everybody at that point. Right. I was happy with it. I was also happy with, being, once you get to the end, if you had, higher percentages, you could get a slightly better ending, or you could get the secret cutscene at the end. And
did you ever get the 100%?
No.
Same. I think I got 90.
Yeah, I got close. I got to the point where she doesn't get him back, but she hears the whistle and she says, I love you to the air, and then just kind of leaves, and it's kind of like, it's nice, but it's not the best ending.
No, I've never earned it. I had to go watch it, watch him wake up from his little water egg.
Yeah. But again, I liked that, and I wish there was still a little bit more, again, more of 10, a little bit more of the magic of 10 going forward, and 12, like you said, its world was huge and expansive and nice, but just the people I didn't care about and whatnot. So I just hope whatever they're doing now is going to be good. But I'm worried in a couple ways, because I'm worried for 16 because of how much 15 and 13 were, and I'm worried, actually. I'm kind of worried for the 7 remake from here on out, because they have a lot of.
What's that?
Well, because if you look at what they're planning to do, and they have all these little extra side things now, that's supposed to be making the whole thing. You have the new content that's coming on the new system, but then they're going to have, Before Crisis and, all this other stuff. I'm worried they're going to try and turn it into Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
With this new timeline that they have, because obviously it's not the same as before. So, I'm a little worried what they're going to do. It's
interesting.
To it.
I mean, I feel like they actually went in a really good direction with the 7 remake. It's similar enough to the original that it still feels like Final Fantasy VII, but it's different enough that it feels fresh.
Well, no, and I understand that. And the first part, the one that just came out, before we found out about all these extra stuff that's coming, we just thought it was going to be 1 part, 2 part, 3 part. It's great. I'm just worried about what's happening now, because now it seems like they're doing a lot more sections, and I'm a little scared.
Trying to keep it as spoiler friendly as possible, because I know 7 isn't, it's not new, but it's not too terribly old. There might be some people that are still holding out. 7 is the 7 remake is diverging.
I was gonna say, there's like the original and there too.
Yeah, you've got it's still the game you remember until you get to the end,
and then you realize,
and then you realize something is happening that's causing the timelines to diverge. And I think that's where they're trying to get their kind of get out of jail free card in order to do something new. Which is, like you said, it's going to be interesting to see how new they go. Mm-hmm. You know, was Midgard just this way to be like, hey guys, it's Final Fantasy VII, and then psych, we're going 6 ways to Sunday. It's going to be like, I know there's like a DLC, I think, like the next DLC is already going to introduce Yuffie.
That's the part that's only going to be for like the PS5's version. Yeah.
Like you get introduced to Yuffie really early. If you've never played the original, you had to jump through hoops to get to Yuffie. You had to get attacked by her, you had to drive her away, then you had to like find her somewhere.
Well, this one's gonna actually be, you're gonna be playing as her and her thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not, I don't know if you actually run into Cloud at all in this
that'll be interesting.
Part. I think it's
like she gets her own story. It's gonna be like, I would say be interesting if we got Vincent's own story, but we have Dirge of Cerberus.
Right, that's already that's kind of already
good game, by the way. But getting back to our topic, because we're already almost at an hour. Just like what you said about 10, I want them to breathe more life into 15, kind of like we had with 10. I want that cast of characters who all feel different, that are memorable, that make me feel like, I care about not just the main character and his cast of buddies, make me care about everyone. By the end of 10, I cared about Waka. I cared about Lulu, Kumari, Yuna, Riku, Titus, Auron. I cared about all of the characters. I gave a damn when you lose Auron because, surprise, he's a ghost. Spoilers for a game that's 20 years old. Jesus Christ. I remember when that game came out. But just give your game some life. Let it have its vibrancy. Don't be afraid to create these main characters that are, they do have their own flair. They're not all just dressed in black and silver and everything. I get that the whole point of 15's outfits was that they wanted it to be cosplayer friendly. I understand that. At the end of the day, I care more about my game than the cosplayers being able to build something a little easier. That might be a polarizing opinion for some people. I understand. But I don't care about pockets as much as I do about a more interestingly designed character. And that's just my thoughts on 16. Let it have life of its own. Let it be its own world separate from ours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's all that. And any final thoughts? Anything you really want to throw out, like that you really want 16 to fix?
No, I mean, as I said, I'm like, I just want that. I want that feeling back. I want that love and feeling. But yeah, no. I just hope that whatever they do, that they don't make this bland story. I just want it to have some life. I don't even care if it's linear, but even then, like, as long as it's, I'd like it to feel like the linear of 10, but the life, and story of something more. So I'm hoping, I'm just hoping that it doesn't. I'm just hoping it doesn't hit the floor hard. I'm hoping it's all right.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's good.
Let it take off and soar. Don't let it crash and burn like it has for the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I hope it gets some decent. I hope it gets some decent, good story and goes through it, and it's good, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But I just worry. I just worry that eventually, when 16 comes out, I'm just gonna look at it and go, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't want to not care about another Final Fantasy game. I want to love it.
Right. Exactly. And
I think that's what it comes down to. Just make me love your games again, Square Enix.
Mm-hmm. That's what I want. That's literally what I want.
Amen to that. All right. Well, thank you everyone very much for listening today. For us rant about a game series that ultimately I know a lot of people love, and everyone's got their favorites. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with what we're saying. Maybe some of you do agree. Comment down below. Let us know what you thought.
Hold on. So we're in agreement that the series lost its footing in is Final Fantasy Spirits Within.
Oh, I mean, look, that monstrosity doesn't deserve that. I would rather play 15 start to finish than acknowledge that is part of the Final Fantasy canon. That's big from me.
Oh.
I would rather sing 15's praises than acknowledge Spirits Within.
Oh, it wasn't that bad.
It was hot garbage, and you know it.
Dude.
Fucking hell. I had buried my memories of that until you just brought it up. Holy shit.
Fun fact, by the way, about that movie. No. They spent so much money on that movie, and it faltered so badly that it actually held up the merger between Square and Enix for an extra year.
I didn't know that. Oh my! How badly do you fuck up when you're like, our companies can't even merge because this movie is so bad?
Dude, the budget for it ended up being like $175 million, and at the time it was like the second highest budgeted movie.
Oh god, that Uncanny Valley nightmare! Oh my god. Fuck, it has been forever since I've even thought about that. And I remember, like, the only thing that game even had, or that movie, thank God it's not a game. The only thing that movie had going for it, for being a Final Fantasy game, was that there was was that there was a character in it named Sid.
There's got to be a Sid in it. Always.
It is. Like, even 12 had a character named Alcid and a character named Dr. Sidolphus. Like, they went double hard on it. And then they're like, this is a Final Fantasy property. It's got a character named Sid, guys. Look at it. Look at the Sid. And you're like, this is a shame upon Final Fantasy. God, I hate it. Why'd you remind me of that?
Sorry, I felt I had to bring it up once.
Oh, it hurts. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to check out GamerKulture over on GamerKulture.com, where we have a huge backlog of videos, articles, and opinion pieces on gaming and gaming culture. That's GamerKulture, one word, culture with a K. You can also check out GamerKulture on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And Falco, where can they find you, buddy?
You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/CaptainFalcoZC. And on YouTube at ZombieCore, along with our Facebook and our Instagram, also ZombieCore. We're actually about to restart doing some more new content on ZombieCore on the YouTube channel. I've been pretty much focusing on Twitch for the last year or so. Yeah. I mean, we put a couple things on ZombieCore's YouTube since then, but not much. And most of it's been VODs from Twitch.
Right. But I've seen those.
But we're going. Me and Frost, original, creator of ZombieCore, is thinking up some new ideas and new things we want to put up, and go more, because when we made ZombieCore in the beginning, and then we wanted a specific type of thing, and we ended up going completely different. So we're going to go back to our original idea and put a little bit more quality over quantity, and I think it'll work out well. So make sure to just join us and go from there. And hopefully everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, keep an eye out for that. More original to form. I dig it. And don't forget, everyone, you can also check out GamerKulture's backlog here on the Grand Geek Gathering channel, where we have lots of all of our old video content still stored. Check out the rest of the offerings from the Grand Geek Gathering. We have just about something for everybody. So if you look around the website over at thegrandgeekgathering.com, I'm sure you'll find something for you. But thank you everyone very much for watching today. Have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, wear a mask, stay cultured, and GGG.